Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 769. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover some news in Formula One. But of course, before I do that, I have to introduce my co-host tonight, which of course means...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
It's the International. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm finally caught up on my sleep.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
It was a hectic Daytona 24 for you.
It was hectic. It was long. It was freezing cold. It was chaotic.
Yeah, long night.
Yeah, I felt like Daytona picked me up and slapped me around the face and kicked me in the gutter right now. But yeah, it's okay. We're all right.
Yeah. Well, I got to say up front, now Paul and I had lined up a very special guest for this podcast. And unfortunately, if, you know, Paul suffers this every time he goes out of town, dealing with dodgy Wi-Fi and internet, right? And unfortunately, his internet died and he couldn't join. So we're going to bring him back because we're very excited to have this guest and we think you're going to enjoy that. So having said that, normally it would be Grace and I, but Paul was going to join, and then sort of at the last minute, the internet died and we couldn't make that connection. So apologies. I knew better than I shouldn't have promoted it on Twitter earlier today because it jinxed it, Paul.
You did. You jinxed it.
I shouldn't have done that.
These things happen.
They do happen. So, but we are going to reschedule and have this, have him join us for a podcast, and we think you're going to like it. I'm really excited about it, and I won't say much more who and what it is, but it is pretty cool.
And it's in a little look into some bits of inside Formula One that I think we've always kind of thought about doing something like this, and we're starting to get it going, so it'll be good.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun. So tonight, while I have Paul, you've heard Grace and I wax poetic about different issues going on in Formula One, but you haven't had Paul's take on some of this, and so there's some updates, and I thought we would get Paul's take on this. Before I do this, Paul, though, I do got to talk about the 24-hour of Daytona. Yeah. So, harder racing, difficult weekend. What happened to the number 23 car?
23 car. Big crash. Boom, big leg. It was not good. The 23 car ran out pretty early and it was running really strong too. We were leading there for a little bit, but definitely in the hunt. And unfortunately, we know there's a mixture of drivers in the field, and one of the silver drivers in a Mercedes kind of spun and knocked us around. And then another one of those inexperienced drivers in an LMP3 or 2 car, I'm not sure what it was, just drove right in the side of the car and took us out of the race and possibly took that chassis out of the rotation, I think, at this point. But it was a big enough hit in the right place to kind of take a big toll on the chassis. So the 23 car was out pretty early in the proceedings. So then we had to focus on the 27 car, which we've gone over the rules maybe a little bit, but there's a pro series and a mixture of drive class drivers in the GT3 kind of field. And so 27 car was once again running well up there, but we got a couple of gremlins in the coil pack on the car, and we had to change that, and that took a number of laps. It's not like just a quick fit, pull them off and put them back on. These cars are pretty complex, and a lot of stuff is really deep in the engine bay, so really difficult thing to change very quickly. And so that put us back. We're still running okay, but to fix a misfire we were having most of the race. And then unfortunately a damper broke coming through the bus stop, which put toll to a few drivers. They changed the curbs there in the bus stop this year to try and stop people from just driving straight through the dirt. The curbs were a little higher, and I think just one strike too many on the curbs and broke a damper, and had to change that near the end of the race, and ended up still in the top 10, but definitely not in the hunt of anything like a podium, which was a shame. And Aston did finish second, who we were actually running ahead of. So I think both cars definitely could have had the opportunity to be in a podium, but to finish on a podium, you have to finish. So good thing is we're competitive. Good thing is the team was actually working well. The drivers drove great, but outside influences unfortunately took us out of a good finish.
That's racing,
That's
right?
racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to stay up the whole time anyway if the car's
Yeah.
still running. So there you
Car's
go.
still running, so Paul's awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you do any fuel duty?
I didn't. No.
Oh.
I didn't. I didn't partake in the actual pit stops this time. I was more on the managerial side. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was tough to stay up all night when you're that many laps down. But
Yeah.
honestly, I say it's tough. It's not really tough because I love every minute of it, and you're just trying to do everything you can to get the best finish you can. Ninth place is better than 16th place. You know,
Yeah.
we saw in the season last year, you give up 20 points, it can be the difference between winning a championship and not. So
Right.
every point needs to be earned, and every point needs to be fought for. So that's what we were doing there at the end.
Right. Did you have to? Did you, in any period of that 24 hours, did you have to hustle down to race control and get loud with anybody?
No, we didn't. I had a couple of conversations before the race just to kind of set the stage of, unfortunately, you know, some of the lesser experienced drivers and what needs to be said to them. But as usual, they probably weren't listening anyway. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Oh boy, tough
But
race.
it was a tough race. I mean, we knew it was going to be
Yeah.
a tough race. 61 cars. There was 35 GT3 cars in the race. I mean, it was a great race. You know, we didn't finish well, but
Yeah.
it was a battle out there for every place. And you know, if you saw any of the in-car footage at the restarts and everything, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like a sprint race every time they dropped the green flag after a restart.
Yeah.
So every driver was fighting tooth and nail. So it's fun to be a part of. We just didn't get the result we wanted.
You don't think, Paul? You think it was just, you know, the way it went? But I did see some commentary on social media that thought there was too many classes in this.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that?
Yeah, I think there's too many prototype classes
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I think, you know, the GTD field, you know, we were like, there was 6 times as many GT3 cars as there were DPI prototypes.
Yeah.
You know, for us, it's like getting some TV time would be appreciated. And these classes always seem to get in the way. And there's some speed differentials, there's some talent differentials. I feel like a couple of prototype classes and the GTD, and I think that would be great.
Do you feel was the speed diff between some of those classes around 30, 40 miles an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, by the
Yeah.
time you get down to the end of those long straights, yeah. And so it's, you know, for being in the GT3 class, that's a complete management, you know, where you're not going to get bulldozed by some of those people, or as we saw with our car, you know, just get run into at a high rate of speed. So
Right.
but
right.
that's endurance racing, that's mixed class racing.
Yeah.
We're all used to it. It's part of the discipline. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, it's a tough weekend, but Sebring's next.
Sebring is next. It's a great track for us. We love going to Sebring.
Yeah.
We've finished on the podium there already. It's one we want to win. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll be cheering for you.
yeah,
That's exciting. All right, let's talk about some Formula One, shall we?
let's do
Let's
it.
talk. Because the big news this week, Paul, the big news.
Get it there, Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton is back after his
back.
hiatus of social media exodus, where he didn't post anything after the final race of the season and unfollowed everybody and had a whole meltdown there and just went dark, right? And collecting himself, obviously very upset.
He
with the
was
outcome.
seen quoting French poetry in a small suburb in Paris, I think.
Yes. We. So no, he posted he said I was what did it say, I was gone or something, but now I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah, now I'm back.
Right,
From the top of the Grand Canyon, it looked like.
Yeah, it looked like Grand Canyon. Right. So good on him. He's back, and the whole Twitter sphere and social media in general is all ablaze with happiness and return to the F1 fan tribe. So everyone's happy to see him back and posting something, which is great.
Did you doubt it though? Did you?
No,
I didn't doubt it.
no.
I
I get it, but there's something about the intrigue and the mystery and all that,
Mm,
and then as time went on, and all of a sudden, then it became, in my mind, a little tedious over the whole thing. I mean,
right.
as I said on the last podcast, there's a lot of details and crap that has to be done now.
Hmm.
And the seat fittings and all of the fitness and all this stuff's got to be done. Just
Yeah.
now it just feels like it's being milked for everything it's worth, and if the team knows he's coming back, then the team needs to come out and discuss it with the
Yeah. I
fans.
think, it's part of it is, get away. I understand
Yeah, I
that,
totally get that.
disappointing finish, get
Totally,
out. Don't really
totally.
want to speak to anyone because there's no point in speaking to anyone. And
Yep.
then it gets to a point where you're leveraging your position to put the screws on, I
Yeah.
think got a little bit like that, but
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad he's
mean, look.
back.
I mean, here at the website, we've been screwed over by the FIA numerous times, and we
Yes,
didn't
we
go
have.
anywhere. We're
That's
still
right. That's
here.
right.
I mean,
So you
um,
don't want to we can't use F1 in our website name
and
promoting the sport
yeah.
that you do so poorly at promoting.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
fair
don't
enough.
promote it over here in America, and we're doing it for you for free, but we can't use F1.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to tell anyone what the
Hmm.
subject matter is.
Right, right. That we're covering.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, oh, by the way, I think I will come down and cover the. Oh, I can't get media credentials. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, don't feel bad, Lewis. We're right there with you, buddy. But we didn't
Yeah.
disappear. We're still here. We're still.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I'm
Hey,
glad I'm
Lewis,
glad
I
he's
didn't go
back.
anywhere, but I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad he's back because I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
George Russell needs that
yeah,
benchmark to
yeah.
race against. And
Absolutely.
you'd hate for the whole thing to end like that. That would be very, very
Yeah, that'd be
silly.
very messy. Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very
very
silly
silly.
for
And
that.
I think it's a good thing to see him drive these new cars and be the barometer for it. Obviously, he's a
Yeah.
superstar driver, so the more the merrier.
Boy, and if you needed a bellwether measurement of the new cars and how they're behaving, I mean, Lewis is the guy,
Hmm.
who's driven, not that George hasn't, but Lewis has driven many iterations.
Right, of new rules and everything like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So having Lewis there is going to be essential, not only to the team, but as you say, to George and et cetera. So anyway, good that he's back. Hey, speaking of the whole debacle in Abu Dhabi, I was going through the news and just kind of getting updates on a lot of the suggestions, the hints, the innuendos or rumors around what the FI was going to do. Zach Brown, very pointed, said it doesn't take until March to do an investigation. We
Right.
need to figure this out. And it was a very salient argument in the point that Zach was saying, Paul, let's not go into the first race of the season talking about the last race of last season. Let's go into the first race talking about the first race, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he was putting pressure on the FI not to wait until March, is what the FI said they were going to wait until, and said, let's just, get it solved. I don't know. He's got a point there,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, no, he does. You got to move on. Yeah, you can't. As you said, if it takes you till March to figure it out, then it's a very flawed system, right?
Yeah.
How much information do you possibly need, and how much time do you need to reflect upon it? Most the results are official, right?
Yeah.
Every race series has to have those official results very, very quickly after. No one wants to go home and wait for 2 weeks to find out the result. No one
Right.
wants to wait 3 months to find out what the FAA plan to do. I mean,
Right.
they should be the benchmark of how you should run a race weekend. They should have the solution in their pocket already. Honestly, I think they should have had the solution before we get to this point. I think there's many things that have been flawed in the process that we've talked about numerous occasions, like consistency,
Yeah.
how many people are up there making those decisions,
Right.
all that stuff. So it's like a lot of things in Formula One, it gets very frustrating because they just get tied up with themselves and can't seem to make a decision or move on in any kind of fluid manner, right?
Yeah, it's just like it comes across as just a lot of navel gazing,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now the rumors I've been reading is or suggesting that there's going to be more resources brought to this race director role into Michael Masi, and to have more resources and more people to help manage a race weekend. And Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm reading that, and I'm reading the comment sections of some of these articles that have been posted about, well, the FIA is going to bring in more resources for Massey and race director role and blah blah blah. And there's a lot of people saying, no, that ain't good enough. Massey's got to go. I
Mm,
mean, you got to bring in resources, and that's fine. And you got to bring in a team or whatever you're going to do. But Massey's, there's these people just anchored in the fact that Massey's is damaged good and don't want him there, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, that's a tough situation.
I mean, I think the stress level is so high.
Mhm.
Anyone could have broken at that point. I don't think it's that.
Right.
If everything in Formula One is deemed around this one singular person, as I said, then it was completely broken already, and it was only doomed for fail. And you can't actually, you got to blame the process, not the individual person, which
Yeah.
is I think what they really need to do. Because no matter who we are, or where we've been, or how great we are at something, we've all been pressured with a split second decision that's been wrong. And,
Yep.
Unfortunately for Masi, it's had massive repercussions, just not in his work life, but his personal life with the tax and all this kind of stuff. And it's just not fair. I think whether it was a right, wrong decision, the best, the third best, whatever decision it made, um, it's not fair to just pull this guy out and just throw him to the wolves and say, well, okay, we've fixed the problem. Mass is out. He is not the problem. Process has always been the problem. And, I think he's experienced enough. He followed Charlie for a number of years. He had the experience there. He just wasn't given the tools to actually rule these races in a calm, informed manner. You need
Yeah.
multiple, people up there with experience that aid you to make those decisions. And you have to have trust in those people as well. They're going to give you the right information to make the ultimate final decisions, which shouldn't necessarily be made on the fly with 2 seconds notice.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point. And if I can appeal to anyone out there, it would be this. Jean Todt said that he's been speaking with Michael Massey, not about the incident, but just in general. And he said he's concerned for his well being. That concerns me to read that. Because let me just say this, folks. This guy is human, okay? This is a living person. He's loved by people. He has people in his life that he loves. He is a person, all right? And we can, make an object out of him and make him the object of our hate because we don't like what happened to Lewis Hamilton. But there's been bad calls through the history of Formula One, or even calls that didn't go the way that it probably should have, but they were, who knows?
Mhm.
But all of the hate and the attacks and the just the vile stuff, um, you know, this guy shouldn't be defined by that one moment in time. Yes, you may not agree with the call, and I understand that, but while everyone's piling on this guy, does anyone actually know this guy? Does
Right.
anyone know his mental health, the state and situation they're going through, what he's going through, and if he felt like, I'm not trying to paint him out a victim or anything else. I'm just saying lighten up a little bit on this guy. And you know, it's there's some calls that are dodgy, and I get it, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a fine line. It's one thing if this guy had done something horrible and killed people, or whatever it is, but he made a call.
Yeah.
He had limited resources and very limited time, matter of seconds, and he made the call, and he was trying to process that, and it didn't come out the way that everyone wanted. But
And
is
and honestly, not it would never have come out the way that everyone wanted because
no.
there's so many different sides. There's your Max fans, there's your Lewis fans, there's the in-betweeners,
Hmm.
and it's so hot. I mean, from my side, when dealing with IMSA, with the officials there, decisions are always made on the fly. We know that, and but you don't dwell on the decision that was made. You just have a conversation after it and say, why was this done? At least that's my approach. It's like,
Yeah.
why was this done? Sometimes you don't have all the information from your little pit box that they had, right?
Right.
So I just asked for clarification. Why was it done this way? And then I say, from our opinion and from our side of, the pit lane, this is how we see it. And then you have a conversation about it, and then you move on, and you hope that next time this kind of situation occurs, everyone's a bit clearer as to what's going to happen and why it happens.
Right. Yeah, safety cars always, there's always people that get screwed by them. There's people that benefit by them.
It's a flawed system, but it's the only system.
Yeah.
It's the best system we got right now. Apart from freeze time, you got to keep the race running. You got to make the best decisions with these things. And I think honestly, that's exactly what he was trying to do. He wasn't trying to manipulate the race. He was just trying to get to the point where the race could naturally go at its best course. And unfortunately, just the way that the Mercedes team had their strategy and their set of tires, and it's anyway, we could beat this one to death. But as you say, the big thing is, you don't pick on him individually. Let's just look at the process, move on, and fix it for next time.
Right.
There was lots of decisions made throughout the whole season. This just happened to be one of them. That happened to be at a pivotal time. But literally, as I know from running championships, every race has a pivotal time.
Yeah.
Right. Every race scores the same amount of points. Every decision, those points add up to a final point count in the end, which decides the champion. So, did the swings and roundabouts work in Lewis's favor or Max's favor over the season? I'm not even sure. So why just pick on this single event and say, the FIA or Masi was out to lose Lewis the championship, when there's several representations during the season where it went the other way and went in Lewis's favor, when maybe Max should have benefited. So that's how I see it. Just it's a full season process.
It is, and I think you're right. I think when you look at Masi, you have to look at the 2 seasons in aggregate, and look at the challenges and some of the calls and some of the decisions. Some of those decisions aren't his. They fell within the race stewards, right? And those are 2 local car club guys and a guest driver, former driver, right? And who knows what they're coming up with. Now, you can ascribe those bad decisions on Masi, but it wasn't Michael's decision. But to Paul's point, that's where this thing is flawed. Grace and I have been arguing this for years, since 2005. For consistency, you have to have an officiating crew that has consistently called the same things and the same rules and regulations. And Christian Horner said that regarding the more resource, he said, it's realistic when you think about the amount of data and information they have now versus just a few years ago. It's way beyond what just one person can manage. And to draw a parallel, this is Formula One, Paul, but you draw a parallel like the IMSA, you guys, along with 60 other cars, or 40, 50, 60 other cars, you're all on the pit wall. The amount of data that IMSA's harvesting from those individual cars and teams and locations and all the marshals and everything that's going on in a race like that, there's no way one dude can manage that amount of data.
No, there is no way. You have to have levels, there is a lot of data from inside the car, from videos, from experienced people on the outside, and you have to have a filter system that the chief steward trusts, that filter out the bad stuff. Because they get a lot of calls from a lot of teams, not calls because they're not allowed to call, rightfully so. They get a lot of messages from a lot of teams on a lot of things. This car did this did this, did you check this? And if one guy's sitting there trying to read these messages, you're all you're doing is looking down and you're not even paying attention to the race, right? So you've got to have this filtering system and people that you trust. With IMSA, it's the same people every weekend,
right?
We know
it's the same reason, Paul, I can't live tweet during a race, because I end up spending all my time reading all these tweets and not watching the race.
Right. Yeah. And I think we did it too before when we were doing calling the race.
Yeah.
You could get the feed and people asking these questions. You just end up looking at the questions and you've missed 4 laps of the race, right? So it's impossible to do. So, IMSA have it. They have the same driver stewards. They have the same stewards in the box all the time. And yeah, there's a downside to that too. There's a familiarity that people could be coerced or have friendships, etc. Right? There's always that side of things too. But I'd choose that over the other. But you just got to have a very strong person in that position that can kind of filter out those things. And as Bo does pretty well, is even though I'd known him for 30 some years, it's like it's the race weekend. I'm the chief steward and you're just a guy on another team, right?
Right.
And I'll accept your information the same way I do as that guy. There's no biases there. It does a great job of that.
But Paul, it'd be easier to manage potential biases than it is to manage radically different decisions on infractions at a host of 23 races all season. Yeah. Right? That's difficult to manage. It's one thing if you think, gosh, I think this guy, I saw him out eating dinner with Toto Wolff and I think he's favoring Mercedes. Well, everybody can manage that.
Yeah.
But trying to manage all the radically different interpretations of the regulations at each race weekend because the stewards are all different, I think that's a difficult proposition. And then trying to have Michael Masi manage and stay in the saddle on this moving bull, I think is a very difficult difficult thing.
Yeah, I think he's well worthy of being in a position in that group. I just think that group, and it's hard to say. I think he's fully capable of keep doing it. Will perception or with what the attacks he's had affect his decision to even want to keep doing it, or to affect his ability to make that firm decision in the moment because of what happened last time he made that firm decision in the moment? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And I don't know who can fill that role. It's a very difficult role to fill. It shouldn't be filled the same way they've been doing it. There's no reason for them to do it this way. It's Formula One. They got more money than anybody in any race series, but they've got the least representation in the stewards than we have in the IMSA. So which I don't understand. And that's a volunteer job too, right? Some of these people the driver steward is a volunteer job. So, if you're Derek Warwick, are you going to really dedicate your whole year to going to a race for free and taking yourself away from your family and everything like everyone else is without getting paid? I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me either.
And no offense, Derek's a great guy, but I'm not a big fan of some of his decisions.
Right, I know.
I'm just not. Yeah.
And I've had a lot of discussions because Emanuele Perot was, I used to speak with him a lot, and we talked about the steward
during the
stuff.
Audi days.
Yeah, during the Audi days, he was doing the steward stuff. He was the head driver expert on the Senna strategy, in fact. And so we had a lot of discussions about that. And it's not an easy decision to make. And I respect his opinion on a lot of things, but sometimes you find those people are in the booth and the decision is you're like, really? That was so, but the consistency is there. And the line is drawn so everyone knows whether they like it or don't like it, what the rules of engagement are every weekend if there's consistency there, and then they can fight, in between races on they want this one a little bit different, they want this called a little bit different, but consistency is massive, both in designing a race car, in driving a race car, in running a race team, and running a race and officiating a race.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Well said. Let's see what other news. Oh, and by the way, I'm not implying anything about Michael's mental health or anything like that. I'm just saying, if the whole world was constantly sending me hate mail every single day, I get a lot of hate mail, but nothing like this.
Sorry about that. I just,
I know.
A little angry last night.
You get pissed. I know. And I piss off. I mean, it's well deserved, but it's, that would be a really heavy burden to carry. And,
it is. Yeah.
Just be human and lighten up a little bit. I know social media is the bravery of being out of range, but I don't know Michael. I've never met Michael, but good grief. I wouldn't treat him that way, no matter how pissed off I was at him. So have some grace and lighten up a little bit. All right, car launches, they're coming. Well, there already was one, if you can call it one. Haas released a digital rendering of their car.
It's a drawing.
It's a drawing of what the car is going to look like. Yeah, and they came out and they made a big splash and said, "Here it is, the 2022 car." And you're thinking, it says digital rendering, so it's a drawing of the car. So Delara hasn't made the chassis yet, and the tub hasn't passed crash test. I don't know. Anyway, Paul, your thoughts on the initial design of the Haas?
Well, my initial thoughts are they saved a lot of money by just literally cut and pasting from the initial Formula One rendering and just putting their decals on it. I mean, we're done, guys. Let's go home early.
That's what it looked like. They just, took the JPEGs from the original one and just redid them in Photoshop.
I know these cars are gonna. They keep saying how similar they're gonna look. I'm doubting that a little bit. I think there's gonna be a little bit more differentiation than people are expecting. Yeah. But they literally just, they got their tracing paper. Yeah. There we go. And then we'll just put our logo here and release it to the world. We're going to be first. We're going to be first.
Yeah. We're the first ones. Look at our car that we photoshopped from the original.
It doesn't really exist because it's just.
It's not made yet. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. You're right. I mean, to me, it looks very similar to the F1, the concept car that the Formula One group, Ross Braun and his group.
And vice versa. Is that Alfa Romeo going to do their car release launch at the second test after their car's already been driving around for 3 days? Go figure that one. I don't know. Right. Come on, where's the helicopters and the dancing girls and the fanfare stuff?
Well, maybe they're going to put that special paint that they always do on when they're testing BMWs and stuff, so you can't really tell the contours of the car and stuff,
Right. Golf ball livery. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Nice.
Right. So,
nice. Not much to fetch from that, other than I was excited. I was like, oh my god, they're really on it. That whole year of not actually designing anything on their car. They are so far ahead of even Mercedes. But
I know, and you remember that. That's what they said. They said, well, this year we're just going to let them drive. We're focusing totally on 22. And I'm like you, and I saw that they're launching their car announcement. I thought, that's cool because Haas did spend all last year ready. I mean, they're on it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Here's a digital drawing of our car.
Nikita drew it while he was out one night. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on his spiral-bound notebook on the cover. That's where we all put our anarchy sign.
High school.
High school. Generation X. Yes, I am Gen X. Let's see. What else? Oh, hey, Autosport had their awards. You know those, right?
Yes.
Every year.
Yeah.
Autosport has their own awards. They say, the hell with the FIA prize-giving ceremony. We have our own awards, and we have our own thoughts, and fans, Autosport readers vote. And so, Max Verstappen, no mister here, won International Driver of the 2021 season, won that. Interestingly, Lando Norris won Best British Competition Driver, which I thought was interesting. Did not see Lewis anywhere in that, but maybe they gave him an award I didn't see. But
well, maybe they figured he wasn't going to show up to the awards anyway. So.
Well, if you're
but Lando didn't even the end either. So.
No, and neither did Max. They also did video thank yous, but I think Horner was there. But
and I think Zach showed up for Lando's award.
Yeah. So anyway, so there you go. So Autosport had their awards. Good on them.
I don't know if they used to be so massive.
I know.
And I know they gave us the prize away. The Young Driver Prize has always been special. It used to be a McLaren one. Now it's an Aston Martin one. Yeah. That's helped a lot of drivers in the years. Some drivers I know that they said, it was just a massive boost. Gave them a lot of opportunities. But
I went to Autosport's website. Mm-hmm. It was like Autosport/awards or whatever. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't go over to Motorsport because they own them, and so I didn't go over there. Maybe I should have gone over there. If I'm wrong on this, apologies. But I went to Autosport's website, and it is, after all, called the Autosport Awards. And I went to their website, and they had a few stories, but I was kind of like, okay, but where's I couldn't find easily anyway, and maybe it's there, but I couldn't find this morning, could not find a list of everybody because You're right. It used to be a real great affair, and they would go down and rank some of the junior drivers in the junior series, and that was
Yeah.
always help advance careers. And yeah, you're right. And it just seems like in the past it was a bigger deal. So anyway, not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, the six finalists, and everyone knew their names, and everyone knew where they were
Yeah,
from,
right.
and then the winner was, as I said, just it was a real big deal to get an F1 test and all this stuff. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
It lost its luster, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it did. Maybe when Motorsport buy them, they just have a different resource, budget for the event or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, let's talk about testing. A little bit of controversy in testing. The first test in Barcelona, of course. There's no one allowed, Paul. No
No.
spectators. Closed doors.
Yeah, just not COVID related either.
No.
Yeah,
That's just.
interesting.
I don't know
Messed
why
up.
they're doing that.
I don't know. I don't
Remember in
know.
the past, they had all the Spanish fans that come in, they buy tickets and come in and watch the test. And remember, because it was just a test, that they were the television crews had like complete
Better
unfettered
access. Yeah,
and
around. Yeah.
you could do a lot more at these events because it wasn't an official Formula One thing.
Yep.
And
Lots of interviews and lots of people.
yeah,
And
yeah,
recent years, F1's popularity has escalated quite a
yeah,
bit. There was a lot more people going.
yeah,
A lot more people
yeah,
interested in that preseason test. A lot more
right.
interests, and then just shut the doors and say nope. Whoever's in
Right.
Bahrain, you can go watch the second test. But
And I'm assuming they paid the circuit owners and everybody the money to use the track for the big test and everything. But why not give the promoters a chance to make a
yeah,
quid,
yeah.
and sell some tickets for it, and you know,
Yeah, I
I
mean
don't know.
everyone's jonesing for F1 and to see the new cars. And maybe it's
Right.
something to do with they will allow the teams to kind of release their cars in a less public atmosphere because of how new everything is, just in case there's some issues, with
Maybe.
tires or whatever. I don't know, but yeah,
Right.
it is a shame. And
Right.
I said it turned into quite last couple of years with the access we've been afforded recently. It was actually quite an event to watch and keep
Yeah.
track of from day to day. Before it was
Right.
just like you saw the test times in Autosport,
Yep.
and that was about all the information you got. But it seemed to be escalating, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Yeah. Now apparently Bahrain, the second test of the season, is going to open their doors and sell tickets for that event.
Right.
So
Hmm.
maybe, just maybe, I'm shooting arrows wrongly here. Maybe the circuit is hosting the test, but maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you have to pay Formula One for the opportunity to sell tickets to that event.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
what it is. And
Yeah. Possibly
maybe
so.
maybe Bahrain, is paying them, and they're paying for the privilege of selling tickets and making a buck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
And then Barcelona F1's just paying for track time, and
Just track time. That's it.
let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't want to shoot a arrow at somebody that doesn't deserve it, but anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, Paul, this whole thing about the sprint races, they're at an impasse right now.
Yes.
This whole thing, you've probably listened to the podcast in the past, but where Zach was saying, no, that's crazy. We're not adding, 3 million more pounds to
Right.
our budget for 6 sprint races or whatever it was. And apparently there, a lot of finagling around this,
Hmm.
and they're at an impasse. And I'm almost to the point, Paul, of thinking, I think either they're just going to scrap the whole damn thing for this year, or just stick with like 3,
Yeah.
like they did last year.
I'm fine with that. I mean, as I said, I'm really indifferent on the sprint races anyway. But it seemed a little absurd to keep adding more and more and more, because you're adding more costs, you're adding more wear and tear on cars that are brand new, etc. I mean, let's just take a step back, not get too excited about the show,
Yeah.
so to speak. The show's been pretty good. Let's just let these new cars find their footing. I mean, you've got to think, a lot of time, over the years, these cars have been evolutions. Parts
Mhm.
maybe can be
Repurposed.
repurposed, or at least not reinvented from scratch.
Right.
All these new cars everything is new. So you got to build your parts bin up. You got to understand what the parts do, and if they fail, you got to be able to, go fix it and get it going. I think adding these sprint races
expensive
at that time is expensive and just too much.
It's like I said.
Teams.
It's like I said last week, or was it the week before, Paul? Is for you, for Ian and you guys, for the team, just to show up at a track and run that 27 for 15, 20 laps costs a lot of money.
Yeah, it does.
A lot. And that's an Aston Martin.
Yeah,
right?
that's on GT3 cars. Formula 1 car, it's a whole another story.
It's
right?
a whole different level of expense to run a Formula 1 car, right? And I'm saying that a lot of people couldn't even afford to run your car at Heart of Racing for a day, just farting around for camera and media time. You know, it's expensive, right?
It is, yeah.
So, I think they should just pull the plug, take a step back. I think your point's great, which is these are brand new cars. People don't have a bunch of spare parts for these things already.
Yeah.
And let's just let them get their sea legs first and then maybe look at the sprint races. I think it's a good point. Let's see. Other COVID test is mandatory for all the teams, apparently. Formula One's going to be. Here's what I'm curious
about. COVID test or
COVID
vaccine?
COVID vaccine. Sorry. COVID vaccine mandatory for all teams. And I'm kind of curious now if we're going to lose any drivers or team members over that. So I don't know. We'll see.
I bet there's, drivers probably not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've come unless there was a stickler for it, but I could definitely see some team members that aren't going to want to work within that program. There is, people I know who don't want to work within that program,
right.
and it's not mandatory in IMSA, so that's okay. So, I could definitely see some people just choosing not to.
Yeah, so we'll see. Watch that space. Also, I'm going to read this article for you guys. This was interesting. Paul sent this over to me. Red Bull, this is from, Adam Cooper. We know Adam, and a good guy over at Autosport. Adam wrote this piece on the 6th, and I thought it was interesting. Red Bull Racing Formula One team principal Christian Horner has fulfilled his obligation to take part in the FIA's Stewards training program. You're like, what? Now that's see, Paul.
See him running around with a fire extinguisher? Oh, no, not that kind of stuff.
See, this is why I like Adam, because he is a F1 journalist, right? That's a real headline. Yeah. That's a right headline. His line, Horner fulfills Qatar F1 Grand Prix, quote, rogue marshal offense obligation. That it says exactly what it just did and what happened and what it was, right? Adam, good for you, because it's my, no shit headline segment. Adam knows how to write a headline.
Now, what another could have, Horner steams into Stewards training prior to season to stake his claim on how things should be.
It would have been, no, Christian Horner didn't get off the hook for calling a rogue marshal, blah, blah. It's just so infantile. Adam, well done, sir. That's why I read yours and other veteran F1 journalists stuff, because you guys know AP style and you know how to write. I don't, but that's why I read your stuff. It says Horner agreed to participate in the event as part of his sentence after he made controversial comments to the media following Max Verstappen's grid penalty at last November's Qatar Grand Prix. Verstappen, received a 5-place grid penalty and 2 super license penalty points for failing to respect double yellow flags in qualifying after Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri stopped on the pit straight. Good summation, Adam. Speaking to Sky F1, the frustrated Horner blamed a, quote, rogue marshal for incorrectly using. You guys remember that? Remember when he did that? So then he received an official warning. And in their decision, the stewards noted that Horner explained that his reaction was one that was made under pressure of competition. So he also offered to participate. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped a part. he offered to apologize to the marshal concerned and to explain to the media that he meant no offense. He also offered to participate in the 2022 FIA International Stewards Program in early February. The stewards unreservedly accept Mr. Horner's offer. It was great. The weekend's 2-day program was attended virtually by stewards from around the world and from many different motorsport disciplines and was designed as a training course to help them do their jobs more effectively. Featured speakers included F1 stewards Gary Connolly and Tim Mayer. In a Q&A, Horner spoke about his role as a Red Bull team boss. He also took part in the competition, the competitors panel, specifically on subject of stewarding, chaired by F1 race director Michael Masi.
Oh.
Whoa! The 2-day program was preceded last week by a separate race director seminar with speakers including Masi, Scott Elkins from Formula E, and FIA Deputy President Robert Reed. So there you go.
Yeah. Yep. I know Scott Elkins is a good guy.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him telling me he was going to Formula E. I was like, congratulations. He was,
Yeah,
he's an American.
Yes.
From the left coast. Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. Christian has served his penalty. And not bad for a rogue team boss. It's tomorrow.
I thought they were going to just make him wave a yellow flag for like 3 hours straight without dropping his arm down. How do you like this, Christian?
Look at this. Do this for 3 hours. I will not call a marshal a rogue again.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, all right, Paul. So let's do some of my Todd's no shit headlines, shall we?
Okay.
All right. Let's do this. This is going to be fun. It's going to be about mainly one thing.
Get it there, Lewis.
So the first headline is Lewis Hamilton, quote, welcomed back, end quote, by his team Mercedes, easing retirement fears. Easing retirement fears. So there you go. Mercedes, just say whether he's going or not. I mean, you're now it looks like you're trying to squeeze blood out of this, marketing turnip, and it's
been doing that for a while.
Yeah, it's looking really silly at this point. I mean, come on. Next one is you'll find this interesting.
And a deep sigh came in the whole Mercedes headquarters.
Yes. Got that? Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what.
That's all the cake, Margaret. Lewis is taken.
Exactly. Let's see. The next one is you'll like this one. Lewis Hamilton to boost security at £18 million West London home as F1 legend prepares for 2022 Max Verstappen showdown. Hello, SEO words. Work, please. SEO work. You've got Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, security, £18 million, West London. Is there any other keywords you could put in there?
Yeah. So what I'm gathering from the headline is Max is going to attack his house. Right. Is that right?
He's putting in.
He's putting it in because he's under attack from Max Verstappen.
That's right. He's boosting his security because Max Verstappen is attacking his West London home.
Yeah, it's like Cape Fear. There's Max on his little bicycle.
Yeah,
going by the house, staring in the window,
riding a bicycle, throwing eggs. Yeah. Yes.
I'll
I can
get
see
you,
it now.
Lewis Hamilton, if it's the last thing I do.
That's it. Yes. So there you go. Lewis Hamilton puts retirement talk to bed with early morning run through London with Mercedes trainer Angela Cullen.
Oh.
Huh.
There you go.
Did he put it to bed? Because nobody's saying anything. He's just out running with Angela.
Yeah.
Put
Be
that
training
to
for
bed.
his, recording of his latest album or something.
He could be. He could be out there with Angela. Maybe he said, I'm done. I'm starting a business with Angela, and they're going to start a fashion business. Who knows?
Yeah. Or start a health club. Everyone, meet up with Lewis at 8 a.m. for a nice run, and we're going to do some calisthenics in the Hyde Park.
That's right.
And, $20 a piece.
Lewis Gym. That would be good. This is, now we're getting into the headlines I really like. Ready? This headline says, that's right. Lewis Hamilton's F1 return for new season, all but confirmed by Mercedes after his social media comeback. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Here's how you should think about Lewis's social media comeback. It's ridiculous. Now, I did like this one, Paul. You'll like this one. And I had to go read this story.
Is it about Lewis again?
No.
There's a theme. There's a
well,
theme.
sort of. Yeah, sort of.
All right.
But this one I had to go read this story because I was a little questionable about this headline. Now, to its credit, they were saying something in this, and I'll explain. But here's the headline. Red Bull fear, quote, limit, end quote, on Max Verstappen's career following Lewis Hamilton battle in, quote, massively exhaustive season, end quote.
Wow.
Thought,
Max
really?
is worn out already?
What? Here's Max. He's a young guy, and he's all going Nico Rosberg on us?
Took 3
Already?
years off his life, it did. Yeah.
Really? So I thought, okay, I have
Yeah.
to read the context behind this one. So I went and read
Okay.
it. And it was Helmut Marko. And Helmut Marko was saying that, yeah, it was brutal, but I think that it was in context of just the year in general with all the COVID and everything that was going on and the stress level and taking the championship down to the end and the way the championship ended and the drama and all of the stuff that was going on. And he said that Max had said, you know, if it's that intense, he wasn't sure how long he wanted to put up with that or do that, you know? And I was like, okay. You know, look, here's the thing. Max, or anyone else on that grid, if you're going to go and fight and compete in Formula One, Lewis and Mercedes is the benchmark. Not Valtteri and Mercedes, Lewis and Mercedes, right? And if you're going to go and beat Lewis, it's going to take just about everything, every ounce of everything you have to beat a guy like Lewis Hamilton. It just is. You know, he's that good. He plays a great mental game. He uses the media against you. I mean, he has multiple weapons in his arsenal to go after everyone, right? And you're just going to have to do that. Now, Nico Rosberg did it, took all the ire and hatred and vilification and everything and said, oh, BS, I'm done. I won the championship. I'm not doing that again. That's stupid, right? So Max has to make a decision on whether he can fight at that level, or Max has to figure out a way to not engage in all that crap, you know? So, because Paul, as you've watched F1 your whole life, and as you know, I mean, a good portion of this is the head game, is the mental side of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and it helps if you're in a superior car that the mental stress is a little less, right?
A lot less,
And, Red Bull did an impressive job to get their car up to the point where it could fight.
Mm-hmm.
The Mercedes did a great job of that. But yeah, it just takes everything. And, these words are probably said right after, which I'm sure you're mentally taxed. But, you have a few weeks off, few ski vacations, a couple of sitting on some tires and stuff like that and goofing around. And I'm sure, I would imagine that knowing you're the F1 world champion is actually takes some of that intensity out just a little bit. But Max never seemed like he was that engrossed in that kind of activity and kind of nonplussed sometimes about the pressure. But maybe there's another side that he only he just cries on his big pillow in front of helmet when no one's watching. I don't know.
Yeah, he gets in the motorhome. I can't take it. Lies on a pillow and helmet. It's okay. Don't worry. We'll get through it together. Poor guy. Oh, well. All right, Max. Make up your mind. You want to be a multiple champion? If so, you're going to have to beat Lewis. Mm-hmm. Or Paul, will he have to? Will he have to beat George?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the near future, that's going to be the benchmark too. So.
That's right. Could George be the main contender for Mercedes?
Yeah, it's tough though, because I mean, you got to think how much experience Lewis has. There's no one on the grid that has all that experience.
Well, Fernando.
There's a lot of talent. Yeah, Fernando, but there's a lot of talent. But talent isn't everything, as you said. It's a lot of stuff in the head. There's a lot of experience, knowing how to deal with things, the pressure, etc., and how to get away, how to come back. And we saw Lewis not do it so well for a number of years.
Yeah, we did. Right.
But he kind of knows himself very well at this point. So I think he knows what he needs to do to, get himself back in the game. And
I agree.
Yeah, sometimes it's actually a way of
Yeah.
attacking somebody else to actually even by not being around, by saying they get all this stuff about retiring and not sulking. This is all part of his
It's
build
all
up
part of it.
for the re-attack of the championship.
Yeah, it's all part of it. It's he's damn good at it. And
I mean, if you're Max Verstappen and you're hearing Lewis Hamilton may not be coming back, you don't know who you're competing against next year, and it's exactly what Lewis wants him to think.
Right. If there's one guy on that grid who had a car on par with Mercedes who would thrive in this environment that Lewis creates and not bat an eye, to be Fernando.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Fernando has more experience, isn't phased by any of the head games, and plays the head games damn well himself, and has a pretty significant social media following himself,
Yeah.
So, and knows how to use it, right? And so I think Fernando, if Alpine get themselves sorted, Paul, look out.
Let's see what they got. Yeah,
exactly. All right, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
Miles asked, Paul, are there particular races that you're looking forward to this season? Personally, I always find that Brazil and Canada give interesting races. What about you, Paul?
I know the races I don't want to see. I'm interested, not in a particular race. Some of these races where aero became such a nullifier of the race itself, and to see how these new rules come into play. Places like Barcelona, etc., where basically you say, well, wherever you start is where you finish because of the aero gets washed. I'm interested to see that process. I think, and then more so than anything else, more so than the Monzas where straight line speed. I don't think that's going to change the narrative very much during the race weekend. But I think a lot of those tracks that became so aero dependent that they nullified the race. I think I want to see how these new rules behave in that.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I was going to say, Miles, I would say Spa. I always look forward to Spa. But with the new regulations, I think Spa will be interesting.
Yes.
Because those laps are so long, Paul, that if you get out and you're running, 0.3 faster a lap, over that distance, it becomes dramatic, right?
Yeah, and well, as we're talking about the aero stuff, it's like places like Eau Rouge and how these tracks evolved with the aero, and what a corner that was difficult was no longer difficult. Are we going to backtrack a little bit there because we know
like R130? Now Spoon is the tough one. R130 is a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And when talking about, I want to see Suzuka again.
Yeah.
And Montreal for sure as well. We haven't seen those tracks for a while. So.
And I'm the other race I'm interested to see is Miami.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Miami Gardens. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway.
I'm not sure. I just don't know how that track's going to evolve.
I don't know
what it's going to be like, but
I don't know. If it turns into a race in the parking lot, I'm going to be really sad.
Yeah, I do know there's going to be a lot of fans there. That's for sure. So
yeah.
The atmosphere will be pretty good, even if it's Miami Gardens and not Miami. So
right. Yeah, it's a Florida man. That's what we need. There's a bunch of drunken Florida man stories coming out of that Grand Prix. That'd be good. Let's see. Mike Stack asks, many newer F1's fans see Formula One so tightly structured and nuanced, dissected, over-engineered that the thought of a, quote, mystery seems impossible. And yet some enduring legendary tales that have never been explained, not tales of creatures sighted in the McLaren Lake, but things that actually have occurred, from Red Bull robberies to Jensen's Ocean 12 heist to hashtag it was the wind. Some things are just bizarre. What are your F1 events that left you with, Mine was the unprecedented strange action of Mercedes switching Lewis and Nico's sides of the garage. No explanation or reason ever forthcoming. So what one sticks in your mind?
Me particularly? Well, I got a couple of stories, and one's not in the big one would be the Ferrari number 2 roll. Remember when who was it? Was it when Schumacher was out and he had to have a stand-in? Who do we have? Fischer Keller jumped in, and
Luca Badour.
Luca Badour, and they couldn't drive around the lap. They were at the back of the pack. Literally, it was a competitive Ferrari, and no one could get this second Ferrari to be even close to the front line of the track for that rest of that season. It was horrendous. It like killed two guys' careers basically by being the opportunity of a lifetime of driving the second Ferrari. And I've never got the bottom of why those guys could not adapt at all to that car and even show any speed whatsoever in it.
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah. The other one was a friend of mine, Desiree Wilson, who was a female driver who drove Formula One in the British Championship. She was she got sponsorship enough, and she was driving a Williams, an old Williams FW07, and she got a chance to enter the British Grand Prix, and she had tested like 2 weeks beforehand and showed competitive times. And when it came to Grand Prix weekend, all of a sudden she couldn't find 2.5 seconds of the pace she'd had before. And she found out afterwards that what happened in those 2 weeks is the guy that actually owned the team and was driving one of the other cars actually switched their chassis. Well, in between that time, and she ended up jumping in a car that she'd actually never driven, even though everything looked the same, etc. But that chassis was a lot more, deficient than the one she'd tested in, and that she'd actually showed pace to be able to qualify for the Grand Prix. Henceforth, she, was not able to qualify for the British Grand Prix that time, even though the time she'd shown 2.5 weeks before would have actually got her on the grid. So, a lot of these games are played behind the scenes. Some people manipulate things a little bit, and that's a story she told me that's like I don't even know how she could see straight if she'd heard that. But sometimes you hear these things way too late in the game to actually be able to react to them.
Yeah, I would say one of the big mysteries is how your friend Tommy Byrne never got an F1 drive, but that's documented in his book.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a mystery.
Yeah, it's not a mystery, Tommy. So that's a great book, by the way. If you guys haven't read that, Tommy Byrne, who's a dear friend of Paul's.
Yeah, I saw him at Daytona, actually. He was driving around.
Did you?
Coaching some people, yeah.
Oh, cool. How's he doing?
Good. Look good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So Tommy wrote a book called Crash and Burn, Byrne, right? And it's a great book, and I've recommended it several times. So if you want a great read, here's a guy who was got a test drive at McLaren, and a very interesting story. And the whole kart days in South America, that was just bizarre.
Yeah. And I was hanging out with him at those times. He was telling me those stories in real time at that point.
Yeah.
Because we were doing some driving stuff up here in America, and he would be flying down there to drive in the F2 series and come back. And you're sat there, you're like, what happened? What? What is it down there? Yeah.
It's just crazy. So it's a good read. So anyway, no, that's good. Those are good ones. But it's a great point, Mike. Let us know what mysteries that happen in Formula One that you never heard why that happened or whatever. I think that's a great point. And then
whatever happened to Sugo?
Right. And what was the whole deal behind Zoran GP? Do you remember they showed up at the track with like an old Toyota chassis or something? They didn't have tires or something. Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't that long ago,
And then there was when Lola finally bowed out of Formula One. They showed up with they had this MasterCard sponsorship, and then they showed up with a modified F3000 with like 5 seconds off the pace, and that pretty much destroyed Lola's reputation forever. Yeah.
Right. There are these little mysteries out there that are pretty surprising and probably more bizarre as you go farther back in time. They get really bizarre. And some of the tie-ins. So anyway, good point, Mike. All right, well, that does it for this podcast. Next week, hopefully, Paul and I will be able to catch up with our guest that we had planned for tonight. I know you guys will really enjoy this podcast next week. So hopefully that'll works out and he gets his internet back. And Until that time, next week, be sure to go to the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility. As always, if you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating, give us some love over there. And also, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. So if you are not a Patreon supporter, please find one and pat them on the back and thank them for helping us create the content that you listen to. Also, you can go over to our store and get yourself a new T-shirt, new logo for the Parc Fermé, and that always helps as well, and we're very grateful for that too. Until next week, Paul. Hopefully we'll come back next week and have some great content for everyone to listen to, and some insight into a very little seen part of Formula One. And should be exciting. But anyway, until that time next week, when we do it all over again, this is Todd, aka Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.